Alright guys, welcome back to another episode of Code Like a Pro. I will be your host as always, Dylan Christopher Israel. And let's go ahead and jump into it. So today we're talking about functions. Our objectives for functions are going to be pretty similar to what our objectives were for variables. We want to have readable, searchable, and understandable code, which will lead to more maintainable code. We could go ahead and put that in there as well if we wanted to, but 3 ubbles seemed like enough. So how are some of the ways that we're going to accomplish this? That's where it's going to differ slightly. We're going to write smaller functions, and we're going to showcase how we might do that and why and when we might do that. And we are going to also, let's go ahead and hide me for a second. Ooh, we're going to move Dylan. No, move Dylan. Dylan doesn't want to move. There we go. We're going to move Dylan over here. And what we're going to do is we're going to eliminate Boolean flags. We're going to talk a little bit about all these things. We're going to talk about why. I just want to tell you why to do things. This is the right way. Do it my way. And it's not always my way, but do it. But I'm going to tell you why. That's important. So we're going to talk about writing our functions so they read top to bottom and making sure that's the correct way. We're going to talk about correct function naming. How do we know we're naming functions right? We're going to go over about 3-4 things that we can do to name our functions properly and give some examples. We're going to talk about limiting parameters and how we might go about doing that and why we need to do that. We're going to, of course, talk about the dry principle, which hopefully everyone's familiar with. Don't repeat yourself and why that's so important. We're going to talk about avoiding side effects in our code to the best of our ability. And we're going to be talking about why there should never be global functions. These are some of the topics we're going to hit on. Let's go ahead and dive into some of the examples. Hey guys, a little shout out to me and my new course, the 100 Algorithms Challenge, how to ace your next JavaScript coding interview. In here, we go over 100 different algorithm solutions. There's about 7.5 to 8 hours of content, and we're just knocking them out. It's a whole lot of fun and a big challenge. I encourage you to take it on. You can help me out in the process. There's a coupon code in the description to get it for just $10, and you could help buy this cat a can of cat food because he's starving. All right, that's going to be on your conscience. But no, seriously, check it out in the description below. So if you've watched the earlier behind the or Code Like a Pro, I was gonna say behind the code, like we're diving deep into the developers' lives or something. But if you watched the earlier ones, this file might look somewhat familiar, and we're going to continue to refactor it. So we've talked about one concept per, or at least I think we have one concept per action item, right? So if you were going to get some data, you might preface that with the verb get. You're not going to start using interchangeable words like retrieve and uplift, or I don't know why you want to say uplift. Typically, you'd say get, and that's the idea here. And that goes the same for like if you're going to use the word update for updating something, that would be what you would do. You wouldn't say set, you wouldn't say update. You would choose a verb to stick with because you want your code to be readable. And part of that process is renaming the function names, as well as in the process eliminating comments. Now, in a future section, we're going to talk about comments, but right now we're not going to worry too much about it because this is more about functions, but they kind of are interchangeable at times. So we have random number here. For the most part, this is a decent variable name. Some things that we could change about it is variable names are supposed to be verbs. They are actions that are happening. So how do we change this to a verb? Well, we add get on here. It's more descriptive of what it actually is. You'll see here we have a min and a max. We could maybe change random number here to be get random number from range if we really wanted to be specific. I think that's fine because that's as descriptive as we can probably get. And this is TypeScript. In JavaScript, typically, you don't have return types. This is a personal preference, I will say. What I think makes more maintainable code is when we actually put explicit return types TypeScript is optional, and in JavaScript it doesn't exist. But in most languages, you have the ability to add an explicit return type, as well as explicitly saying what these values will be, which I think is equally important. You know what? I think let's just go through this this project from the top to bottom and see if there's a way that we can update these functions just to make the function names a little bit more readable, a little bit more understandable. Let's see here. So this is our box sizing prop. Add CSS to selected buttons and changes answers and box sizing. So realistically, I think this should probably be broken out into different different functions. Whenever I see an if else like this, I start thinking about how can I eliminate it. Not because if and else statements are inherently bad or anything like that, but usually it's because they really are doing two separate things, and I want to treat it that way. So in this instance, I would define a function update. Let's see, we're gonna update is box. So select changes, answers, and box sizing. Update border box sizing, something like that. And in here, let's start. It looks like we're not actually returning anything, which is why it's an update. But we can go ahead and put a void return type. And instead, let's start by here, passing this in here. That should all still be the same. And then in here. And I think we'll do a little bit more updating in a second as well. This dot update border box sizing. Else, this is going to be content box function update content box sizing. It looks like we're not going to be taking anything else in here. Go ahead and put a void on that, and we're going to go ahead and paste this in here like so, and go ahead and do this dot update content box sizing. Oh, I'm sorry, we don't need the this on here because we're not working within a class. It's just a generic TypeScript application. So we've now put all the logic in two separate files, and we're saying at the end of here reset. So we have this dot border box and our else, and we've sort of put these into smaller functions. That's really one of the things. If your function's more than 10 lines long, you need to start reconsidering how we might be able to go about and refactor that. And you know that includes renaming these to provide additional context. Like we could probably have guessed based off the content that was in here that, hey, if border box is true, update border box sizing. And then reading through here to see, oh, well, we're updating content box, right? And that's how we did it to name this. But a better way of doing that is to write cleaner, more maintainable code. Is we can, and then that way also we can test these functions individually as well. We'll say, hey, update content box sizing. That makes sense. And update border box sizing. It's a more descriptive variable name, and it's easier to read here as well. And what happens on top of that, I guess, is that once you know, if any of the code's breaking, you're obviously going to look at these functions. But when you're looking at this sort of container, this public function meaning the user's going to be dealing with it, while these would probably be private functions, meaning that the user doesn't even know they exist. They just see that there's something that says update border box sizing, update content box sizing. They can't actually call these directly. Then we have we really only have to maintain one function and be able to read one function to see what it does in the meantime, unless something breaks or isn't working properly. Okay, so this would be a great example of how we might modify a name here. So we have this add points where we're incrementing points, and you could make the argument that perhaps what we're actually doing here is updating the points. Add is a little bit more descriptive, but update points by 1 by I. So this is a unique one because it looks like we're always incrementing. So you might actually be able to say that, hey, when we're always incrementing, add is a good name. So I take it back. I think this is a good value here. and then we are calling great job after the fact. Now this is more of a formatting thing, and we'll do a formatting video, but typically you want, and we'll leave it, but typically you're going to want to set your lot. You want to separate blocks of code based off spaces. Let's see here. So this is probably a name that we would refactor very quickly, and the reason for it is great job isn't descriptive, right? It doesn't really provide any context. It is sort of a funny name in the fact that, like, oh, great job. What is this actually? Probably a completion animation. This would be something like trigger completion, something like that. Like you have animation probably on top of there. Here we are saying like, hey, you completed it, it's an animation, and this triggers it, right? So this is much more descriptive than great job. Let's see if we have any more great jobs out there. Nope, just the one in here. All right, so cool. So we're triggering our completion animation. And I may have this slightly wrong, but triggering animation is right. There may be a trigger add points animation. That might even be something that makes sense. We're now adding points. I'm making the assumption that, hey, this is something that is is after they're completed the example. Let's see here, set styles. So I definitely would change this to update styles, because we are trying to do one concept, one verb per concept, right? And you also notice that good job was not a verb as well. Functions and methods, these are verbs, and we need to treat them as such, right? So I'm not really so here we're going to do update CSS display again, because we are updating a ton of different values here. Yeah, we'll leave it at that, I think. So answer buttons, a whole lot going on in this thing. Let me take a quicker look real quick. All right, so this is another great example of how we're going to set different values here. There's a lot going on in this function here. And to be honest, I'm not fully sure everything that's going on here. We're going to delete this line of code because that doesn't do dick. Alright, so it sounds like this is updating the answer button. So we're going to update answer. And there's, I mean, you could abbreviate BTN, but there's really no reason to. Don't be afraid to have long variable names. Long variable names are descriptive variable names typically. We have three things here. You know, we all use IntelliSense. It doesn't matter that we're using extra buttons. These are all great things. So how would we? So I think what we're going to do here is we're going to. Is incorrect one ever used? Yeah, incorrect one, correct one, and correct. So CSS is here is a global function. So I'm going to, and notice by the way how when I'm writing these additional functions that we're going to break out our code, it's always right next to it. It's by convenience, but it's also by design, where we want functions that are used by other functions, if possible, to be nested in the code where you would expect them to be, right? So I'm defining a function that I'm going to use here, and I want it to be nearby so I can see it and provide context. So in this case, we're going to write a get, and this is going to be get all answers. And this is going to take in, what is this taking in? Is this taking in anything? It is going to take in a nothing. It's actually going to just return things. So here we're going to return an array of, I believe, numbers. Cool. And what we're going to do is we're going to take pretty much all of this, and we're going to replace it with a const answers is equal to, and then we'll say that get all answers. And in here, we're just going to go ahead and return this like so. And what's the problem here? Oh yeah, let's go ahead and put this in here. Very nice. Okay, so I'm not worried about formatting and spacing. That's why I'm not cleaning this up for some of you who are losing their mind. It's, what I'm worried about is cleaning up our function code. So now we've put this all in one function where we're going to handle that, and then the thing that he thought was sorting the answer buttons wasn't, so we might as well just delete this code while we're at it. Oh, that comment's not relevant. Oh, I'll leave that in there for the comment video. Okay, so for each button.html, and even something like this. This is actually, so here we're updating answer buttons. I guess this is part of this one. We could break this out if we wanted to, but I think that's fine. But now we've been able to take a lot of this logic, slightly change it, and do something with it that now makes sense, right? We don't really need it all in here. This is getting all the answers incorrect and correct. If we wanted to make it more descriptive, we could even put incorrect and correct, because that's what I felt necessary to describe, right? So start going off your own thing. It's like, what does this do? It gets all the answers. What is all? It's incorrect and correct. So maybe if you know, I usually go with the verbal test for a lot of things, and it helps a lot when describing functions. Yeah, one other thing we talked about was eliminating Boolean flags, and that's sort of what I meant with this if else, because that's really what it is. It's a I mean, typically a Boolean flag would be passed in here, but in our application, one thing that we could do is we could probably eliminate this function altogether and just do our best to have these trigger the correct code. And we could go ahead and throw reset into each one of these when they're called, and we can just say, hey, we need to make sure that this is only on the one with the ID of border box. And now we don't have to have this sort of Boolean flag, this if else that goes in there, or a flag that goes into the event or the parameter or anything like that. So typically, if you can, and it's not always possible, but it's possible more often than people think, it's great to try and eliminate those Boolean flags so that you don't have to worry about them. Now somehow this is not, I mean, I think I talked about it when it comes to variables, about not having globals. But so in this project we have this CSS here, which is, you know, we don't even really do anything with it. We just initialize it. So we want to do our best to not have globals, and there's quite a bit of globals in here. And the reason for that is even in object-oriented programming, we want to have as few side effects as possible. It's not always possible. You know, this, so you'll see this like CSS global variable here. Honestly, when it's like this, are we even let me see if we're even using this anywhere. Yeah, we are. We're initializing values. But you'd probably be better off doing something like this, where let's just eliminate this variable altogether. And in here, we are going to get the width, the padding, the margin. And so we can eliminate this global variable by writing a function where we say something, get CSS box model properties. And in here, we will go ahead and take all this and put this in here. And what we're going to return is just an array of those values, right? A width, the pad, the BRDR, the God, I would probably rename a lot of this stuff. So I'm going to guess this is border. I'm also going to guess that this is margin. And I'm going to guess that this is border style. So I start by renaming those. Even though this isn't about variable renaming, it's just as important. Margin and then border style. All right. So that's what I'm going to return here, which is width, pad, margin, border. We don't care about that right now. Other places where we're going to use this, we're going to update it down below. So in this instance, we are going to say const, and I think what we'll do is we'll just do some array deconstructing here, and we'll say this is equal to get CSS box model properties. That's a const. All right, cool. What's the issue here? Shadowed. There we go. I think width might be some sort of global variable, or might be a reserved keyword. Same with border. No shadow. Oh, maybe they want us to use it. No, we're using width. So pad, it should be padding. I don't like pad either. All right, so here for padding, we'll go ahead and throw it in like so. For border, go ahead and throw it in like so. Shadow, what is this shadow name? No shadowed variable. Is it not like that? I don't know. I think there's probably some naming thing in here, but instead of focusing on that on the video, you just focus on the idea here. So I'm just gonna throw a 1 on this. So we're just gonna do some string interpolation here. We're gonna throw margin 1. Oops. And then we'll go ahead and do border style 1 for. Oh, this is not border style. This is box sizing. See. Box sizing 1, and we'll go ahead and do that. And then down here, let's update our stuff. Box sizing. Excellent. And this gives us the same thing here. I don't know. I have to look into this shadow variable thing is, but okay. Now, now we've gone and created this item here, and where we're going to be using those CSS properties. Let's go ahead and find the CSS here. Here, we can go and say const CSS is equal to get CSS box model properties, like so. We still have access to them. We've eliminated a global variable, and in our functions, we've eliminated side effects throughout the entire application, where we have to track, like, okay, I set the CSS property here, and now I called 5 functions. It's this after this step, this after this step. It got updated here, it got reverted here. We don't want side effects like that. We want to, even in object-oriented programming, take a somewhat functional approach and eliminate side effects. All right, guys, so that's all I got for you today. Look forward to next week's video where we talk about comments. What are good comments? What are bad comments? How we should use comments, and how with our previous sections with variable names and with function names and all the sort of code updating that we've done, how we are going to be able to improve our comments and improve our code to by the end of this, you're probably getting sick of it, but to write more readable, searchable, and maintainable code, which is the signs of a good professional developer. So as always, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, share. Shares help a ton, and hit that notification bell so you can know when the next video comes up. I'll see you guys next time. Bye. So Tyler Kona says, do not usually do your own HTML. So as a front-end dev, you're always working with HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and usually some sort of framework and version control. But I think he's asking because I was looking for a metadata tag, which I actually just got this bug in production where we didn't have our metadata tag in our index, on our index page, and thus we weren't able to properly transform the page to be responsive. So that's probably what he's referring to. But yes, every day I work with HTML. Hey guys, thanks for watching the video. Hope you subscribed and hit that notification bell. Check out my latest course, the 100 Algorithms Challenge, where we go through 100 different algorithms in JavaScript and TypeScript so that you can ace your next JavaScript coding interview. You can get it in the description for just $9.99. Check it out. See you next time. Thanks for watching.